She is a sports reporter, host, and digital content creator. And if you're following the W, you've most likely seen her work covering the New York Liberty. We have the pleasure in welcoming Aliyah Funschelle onto Hoopsology. Welcome, Aliyah.
Hi, you said my name perfectly, which is like crazy because a lot of people don't get it right. So already on starting off on a good note.
Confession, that's the most nerve-wracking part of doing these interviews. I
Oh,
make sure I practice a bunch of times, make sure I don't screw anybody's name up. Well, thank you for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it. We have a tradition on our podcast because we delve into kind of the hot topics, what's happening in basketball, but also basketball culture itself. So with this question, you can take it any way you want it.
Okay,
What
cool.
is your favorite basketball memory or your first basketball memory, any way you want to take it?
My first basketball memory, and I honestly think it has to do with why I even work in sports in the first place, is my dad's obsession with the New York Knicks. We're from New York, but I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. But honestly, he made Wichita feel like New York with how much he loved the Knicks. So definitely like Clyde Frazier, like he's been a household name since I was little. And so like I would say that. And then just growing up being a very sad fan.
So, what is it like with your fandom of the Knicks now covering a lot of the Liberty, and particularly this season within the W, a lot of attention? Can you kind of compare this season to seasons past? Because you're actually covering these games. You're seeing the fans. You're actually in these arenas compared to like the mainstream pundits who are just talking from miles away. You're actually there with all these games. Can you kind of compare kind of the aura in arena wise this with this season of the W compared to seasons past?
Yeah, I mean, it's been cool watching it evolve. I've only lived in New York now for 3 years, and I've been going to games ever since I moved here. And even in 2021, it was nearly empty. 2022, not great. um, and watching like the success just on and off the court has been amazing. Like the energy is insane. But something that I have to give credit to is the OG WNBA fans. Like they show up. They are more passionate than a lot of other sports fans that I know. And so although like the crowds weren't selling out and it was, smaller crowds, the passion was always there. And so now it's been really cool to see that passion be more widespread and easier accessible as well. I mean, I grew up a fan of the NBA, even though I played women's basketball my whole life because it wasn't accessible on social media or on TV. And so I think that the more energy, time, and money that organizations and media companies put into the sport, like it just is going to grow the game even more. So the energy this year has just been incredible, almost bringing me to tears so many times because of how many people are just filling the stands.
So, what is it like for kind of because I think online there's been this divide of OG WNBA fans and media members compared to this new crop of eyeballs onto the product.
Mhm.
And I can kind of sympathize with a lot of the kind of the OG fans, just being a fan of mixed martial arts and just knowing all of the lies and just
Mhm.
misconceptions that we're told with a rising sport, and eventually it becomes part of mainstream consciousness, and it's not a big deal. But with the WNBA, I noticed kind of that same discourse with a lot of people who are just interjecting a lot of storylines that are not necessarily beneficial to the health of the league. What is that like for you, and not only, and also other people within that space trying to cope with that, educate without trying?
Mhm.
It's kind of like I can feel the frustration. I can understand that, but also you want to make sure that the new eyeballs stay onto the product. What do you think that dichotomy is like?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I think women's sports is so welcoming to new fans and to media members. I mean, at one point I was a new media member myself and it's always been welcoming, but I think it's in the way people approach it because I wanted to start talking about the WNBA long before I actually did, but I dedicated a whole year of my life in grad school to really researching the league and everything I possibly could about it before I spoke on it. And what we're seeing here is there's a lot of people that realize right now it's trending. It can get a lot of views. It can get a lot of clicks, but it's like they're really compromising the integrity of the game and like the players themselves. And so I've seen a lot of kind of clickbaity headlines and stuff. And although it's great to get eyeballs on and like to make it more mainstream media headlines, I think the way they're kind of framing it opens the door to a lot of racist and misogynistic comments and that's just not the right way to go about it. So it's definitely a welcoming community, but it's to the people that are wanting to go about it the right way, learn about the players, and actually talk basketball and not talk about all these other things that don't matter.
So let's talk basketball. Let's talk about the Liberty. I think they're
Yeah.
one of the most fascinating teams in the W right
Mhm.
now. Really loaded. Um, Before we talk about currently what's going on with the Liberty, kind of take us within training camp and their expectations headed into this season, having such a stacked roster, the momentum Sabrina Ionescu had just within the three
Mhm.
point contest, and in entering this season, I think John Cole Jones has been incredible.
Oh,
This,
yeah.
I think, an MVP. I know everybody's talking about Asia Wilson, but I just think John Cole Jones is it's right there with her.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about their mentality within training camp and now the Liberty being one of the top teams in the W now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, last season it was okay, we have this super team. How do we gel all these stars together? And obviously, the Liberty saw so much success being in the finals and obviously losing to the Aces. But I think this year it was just a different mentality. It was kind of like less so the glitz and glamour of forming a super team and business as usual this year and just gelling together and building on what the foundation last year set for them. And all of these players, they're not complacent. And I've had a great opportunity to really get to know them as people, as players, like, and speak to them one on one. And they don't stay complacent with where they're at in their own journeys. I mean, you see John Quell, like, every single game, warm ups, shooting the three, like, reps on reps on reps, and then it translates into her game. Or Sabrina Ionescu, like, she's driving to the basket more, or not just shooting threes, and she's been working on her defense. So I think that they all have this really hungry mentality and have supported each other to all really get better at their own skills. And then collectively, it's been really fun to watch.
So one of the comments I've been seeing, because my co-host and I, we've been talking about the Indiana Fever and their schedule in regards
Mhm.
to Caitlin Clark and just the beginning of their season. So such a tough schedule for all the newer players on that team. I want to ask you, since you covered this league in depth, we have the Olympic break. This is kind of from what I understand, an unusual season compared to other seasons just
Mhm.
because of Paris coming up. Do you know if the New York Liberty is going to have like a similar schedule to what the Fever went through later in the season in terms of a lot of games back to back? And do you know if all the teams will go through what the Fever went through, or is it just a Indiana Fever Pacific situation?
I think it's kind of all over the place. I mean, the Liberty
Gotcha.
did go on a really crazy like game streak as well, whereas like the Aces seem to have way less games. But in seasons prior, it's always just kind of been wonky, and I do think that has to do with so much like the TV deals, or even just like not having chartered flights makes you have to really rethink how you're going to play games and how you're going to travel. Like, for instance, the Sparks are coming to town, and it's almost like they're playing a series against them because they're playing them twice and then they're heading back out west. So I think that has to do with it. I haven't really like dove too much into the logistics, but it's definitely happened before the Fever, and there's going to be other teams where it feels like they're not playing for a while, or like they're having like back to back. So I think it's just like, especially this season with the Olympics and everything, it's just so hard to navigate.
Gotcha. So you think in following seasons with league expansion, with Golden
Mhm.
State, Toronto, with a new TV deal, you think this would be rectified in future seasons? You think?
Yeah, I really hope so. And I think that there's a lot of things that are coming in the future that would make this easier to be like more of like the NBA format, even though the W season is way more condensed and shorter. Like, I feel like it will hopefully get better.
Gotcha. So going back to the Liberty, who do you think is kind of their biggest threat at the moment? The Aces have been struggling, but I feel like they're going to get their swagger back eventually. The Connecticut
Mhm.
Sun have been on fire. I really like the Phoenix Mercury, especially with Brittany Griner back. They're going
Yeah.
to be a force. Do you see kind of any roadblocks that might cause trouble for the Liberty? Or do you think they're going to steamroll right towards the playoffs?
I mean, the Connecticut Sun, they started the season crazy with that
Yeah,
winning streak and being undefeated, and they're always a threat. I mean, we saw last year their super team got deconstructed while everyone else was building a super team, and Alyssa Thomas stepped up and led them to the semifinals of the Eastern Conference, but against the Liberty. But yeah, between the Sun, I mean, the Aces are always going to be good. The Minnesota Lynx are looking great too, but
they are.
also Phoenix, like, I know you mentioned BG being back, but also like Natasha Cloud,
That's right.
she is such a vice when it comes to the Liberty, like, because she knows how to guard the Liberty. Like, I saw it back when she was on the Mystics and they came for the playoffs. I'm like, she has she has the Liberty secret sauce figured out when it comes to defense with us. So I think like she's a threat in general, and just like, Phoenix looked really good when they came here. So there's just so much talent in the league, and like the storyline can flip at any given moment. Like the Liberty could easily maybe go on a losing streak. I obviously don't want to see that, but I just think the talent is so rich in the league that it's really anyone's game.
So, what do you think of the rookie class? A lot of talk about Caitlin Clark, but there's been other fantastic rookies too. What is one rookie that no one is talking about, but they've made a lot of noise in terms of what you observed this season, you think?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I know Cameron Brink, people talk about her a lot, especially because she comes with the best outfits, and she's so like well trained in the media that like her interviews are always going viral, her like podcast appearances. But I mean, she is playing so well right now. And like also Angel Reese. I know she gets a lot of attention, but I think what she's doing often gets overshadowed just because people have such polarized opinions on her. But she is really dominating. And it's so cool to see that she really didn't have like an adjustment period. She kind of went straight in and just started dominating.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how well these rookies have adapted, especially with all the media attention and it's
Mhm.
all just a lot of just noise. I think that their play has really held up to that. And I think Kate Martin too. I think that's a
Oh, yeah.
fantastic story. She hasn't even expected to be drafted. I mean, you really don't see that in sports.
Yeah.
Players have agents, they get the heads up, they're not surprised. And I think that's a fantastic story that's been kind of underplayed this season.
Oh,
That's
yeah. I mean,
awesome.
I was sitting right in front of her when she got drafted. Like that was my video that went everywhere. And
Yeah.
like to see that moment, and I'm like, oh, I just hope she makes the roster. To then like her actually being like a factor in the game is really cool.
No, totally agree. I want to ask you: are you going to be out for the WNBA All Star Game by any chance?
Yes, I will be.
So, what do you think of the format? You have Team USA versus the WNBA All Stars. What do you make? What do you anticipate? Because I think that's going to gain a lot of hype, just in
Yeah.
terms of like I'm sure Caitlin Clark's probably going to be fan voted in. I'm
Oh,
a
yeah.
fan. So, what do you make of that? I know it's a little bit ways away, but
Mhm.
what do you make of that? Because I think that's going to be really just a compelling event for the W.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool format. I know like the NBA has tried different, like they've tried drafts for like All Star, they've tried
Yeah.
like East versus West. So it's really cool to see them switch it up because All Star games like can sometimes be like repetitive or like kind of just playful. So I think this will be fun. But I think this will give people the rookie versus vet type of moment that like has been talked about all season long. Because I have a feeling a lot of the rookies will be on the All-Star team versus Team USA. So I think we'll get to see some of the rookies shine, and like those storylines that keep getting pushed about, oh, the rookies and the vets, like welcome to the W moments. Like I think it'll be a great opportunity to see that.
All right, I've been dying to ask you this. A lot of hype is being drawn to this. I don't know. Can't call it individual. The mascot, Ellie the Elephant. I
Yes,
think the best mascot in sports, hands down.
definitely.
What has been the media attention for Ellie? And we're a copycat society, so I can just see other leagues, other teams kind of taking this format and running with it.
Mhm.
What makes Ellie unique? And can explain to our viewers that have no idea what we're talking about? Like, why is Ellie one of the best mascots in sports in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion also kind of derives from knowing the people that run everything, like the game presentation, and they're so great. And they actually recently mentioned this Anscape, like the
Yeah.
ESPN property, recently
Yep.
did a video on Ellie, and they were talking about how she embodies Brooklyn culture by the way she dresses, the way she dances. I mean, the hoops she wears, her hair, everything about her screams Brooklyn. And I think like that outgoing personality, it can't be mimicked because it's not true to other markets. So I think like what makes her so successful is that like it really embodies the market that the Liberty are playing in. And I think they've really emphasized how important culture is to the team and to the city. And Ellie, in an elephant form, has embodied everything that like you would think of when you think of a Brooklyn individual.
So I know for myself, mascots were more of a big deal, at least in the NBA when I was younger. I think now mascots are a lot more popular within college. I mean, not so much within professional sports these days. Kind of where do you think the future is for Ellie? I mean, I believe Little Kim performed with her. Like
Yeah.
she's kind of crossing over into pop culture. So kind
Oh
of the
yeah.
possibilities are endless. I think she might. I can see her transcending what she's doing with the Liberty. Is there kind of hints for that? Is she kind of? Do you see other opportunities that might lie for her in the off season
Oh
as
yeah.
well?
Definitely. I mean, like Ellie dancing and interacting with celebrities is huge. But also, I've had people sliding into my DMs asking if they can send a PR box to Ellie. They're like,
Oh
"Hi,
wow,
I make dresses or I make purses, and we want to send one to Ellie." Like
wow.
they don't care about me. Like they care about Ellie. So I think like she's literally becoming an influencer, and it's really cool to see because it's like kind of like having a star player on your team that brings in a bunch of new fans. Like if you were, to sign like a huge name to your team, obviously it brings in a lot of like just casual fans. And I honestly think she's doing that, like as a mascot. Especially on TikTok, like every video of her goes viral, and people are like, I don't care about basketball, but I care about Ellie. So she's quite the influencer, and it's just going to grow the Liberty even more.
Can you talk about the Liberty fan base? You mentioned a lot of the OG fans. We always kind of like to delve into what is the vibe of each fan base, whether it's in the NBA or WNBA. What makes the fan base of the Liberty so unique, especially just because you have the Nets, you have the Knicks.
Yeah.
What is their own individual identity? Do they kind of separate themselves from the other teams? Like, what is kind of the vibe of the Liberty compared to the rest of the league? You think?
I mean, one, I think like just the Liberty has a very passionate fan base. I mean, you see that in all New York sports is like
Yeah.
the New York fans, they know how to really support a team. But I think what makes it even more unique is, and a lot of WNBA fans in general, but like there's been fans that have seen them go from playing in Westchester and like having to commute all the way out there and playing in front of like not that many people to seeing what they're building now. And I think people take that as part of their identity, and they feel like they also made a change and a positive impact on the league because they feel so connected. And I think that bond like has really, it really shows through. And so not only that, but like the Liberty does such a good job at giving back to their community. And so I feel like they feel like part of the family, and I can confidently say that because like in the marketing and the themed nights that the Liberty does, like it's all for the community. It's the LGBTQ community, the Black community, the XYZ, like you name it. Like if it's important to New York, like it's important to the Liberty. And I think it just gives people a sense of belonging.
So, just a little background on our podcast. We launched it in 2020. And one of the
Mhm.
big things throughout our show has been, I have noticed with the WNBA really utilizing social media, I think better than other leagues to their own advantage. Can you
Yeah.
kind of talk about what makes the WNBA unique on social media, specifically compared to other leagues? Because I think distinct their content, we talked about Ellie the Elephant, just
Mhm.
the pregame fits, I think is different than like compared to what the NBA does. I just
Mhm.
think the W has its own unique swagger that separates from other sports. Can you kind of talk
Yeah.
about that? Because I know there's been a lot of people just automatically assume Kayla Clark was just she came into the league and all of a sudden the league is popular. This has been brewing for a long time. You kind of
Mhm.
talk about specifically the W and how they utilize social media to really, I think, have the league, experience this popularity that's experiencing right now.
Yeah, I think what the WNBA does so well, especially as someone that has helped other brands try to find their brand voice, is they really lean into their brand voice. They're not afraid to like not sound too corporate. They sound like one of the fans. They don't use like proper sentences and like
Mhm.
proper like it's like you're reading paragraphs. It's like no, they speak to the fans like they are one of the fans, and I think that has just helped it grow tremendously. They have a very funny sense of humor. They play into some of not the drama, but just some of like the inside jokes that the WNBA fans have. So the fact that they're not afraid to shy away from being casual with their fans is like I think what makes them so successful.
Last question for you. What are you looking forward to for the rest of the season? Are there any matchups that you're looking forward to? We have that little Olympic break. Are you looking forward to just kind of watching the Olympics? Your team was announced, pretty stat squad so far.
Mhm.
What are you kind of looking forward to? Kind of we're heading in towards the All Star break.
I'm just looking forward to, like, there's so many matchups. I mean, the Commissioner Cup
Yep.
finals, like, that's going to be huge, but also like it just shows like the competition in this league is really top tier. The more into the season we get, when the games mean even more than they do right now. And also like Team USA is just gonna kill everything. Like they're like so talented, and like it's gonna be great to see them get a gold medal. So but yeah, no, it's just like I'm so excited for people to see like why I love the WNBA so much, like on the court, because off the court I could talk about it for days, but like on the court it's a legit product out there. So I'm excited for the games to get even more meaningful.
Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can find you on social media and any other projects you want our audience to know about as well?
Sure, you can find me pretty much anywhere if you just type in my name, Aliyah Funschelle. It's pretty unique. So I do love TikTok. So I've been really trying to be more TikTok focused lately, and trying to really build that out. So definitely have a lot coming up, especially with All Star. So yeah, follow along for all the coverage.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.